They invited me to dinner. Told me there'd be music, wine, a beautiful woman. They served me cakes laced with cyanide. I ate every last one. They poured me wine mixed with poison. I drank it. Then one of them put a gun to my back and pulled the trigger. I fell, but I did not die. My name is Grigori Rasputin, and this is my story. I was born in 1869 in a village called Pokrovskoye, a place where winter lasts 8 months and God speaks to you through the blizzard, if he bothers to speak at all. My father, Yefim, was a peasant. My mother, a simple woman. We had nothing. We were nobody. I never went to school. I could barely read, could barely write. But even as a child, I felt it. Something beyond this world. Something that watches you through the dark. In my younger years, I drank. I stole horses. Yes, that happened. They gave me the name Rasputin, from the Russian word for dissolute, the wayward one, the debauched one. Fine by me. I'm not ashamed of what I was. In 1897, I left everything and walked, literally walked, on a pilgrimage. First to the monastery at Verkhoturya, then to Kiev, then Greece, then the holy mountain of Athos. Thousands of miles on foot, no money, almost no food. And something inside me changed. I came back a different man. People said I could heal the sick. People said I could see the future. Here's the truth. I didn't always understand what was happening myself. But people came to me broken and left whole. That was enough for me. St. Petersburg treated me like a stray dog. I wore a peasant's shirt in a city of tailored coats. No money, no connections, no last name worth a damn. Just a reputation as a man who could heal. At first, wealthy women brought me into their drawing rooms. They were looking for spiritual guides, mystics, prophets. Russia at that time was drunk on the occult. Seances, theosophy, tarot cards, the whole thing. They needed someone to believe in. I just said what I saw. In 1905, I was introduced to Grand Duke Nicholas Nikolaevich. And then, something happened that changed my life forever. The heir to the Russian throne, Crown Prince Alexei, had hemophilia. His blood couldn't clot. A bruise, a stumble, a nosebleed, any of it could kill him. The best doctors in Europe were helpless. His mother, Empress Alexandra, was losing her mind with grief. In the fall of 1906, they called me to the palace. I made no promises. I simply sat beside the boy, spoke to him quietly, held his hand, looked him in the eyes. The bleeding stopped. I cannot explain how. Maybe hypnosis, maybe prayer. Maybe God actually exists and occasionally picks up the phone. But from that day forward, Alexandra looked at me like I'd been sent from heaven. And Nicholas tolerated me for the sake of his wife and his son. You want to know what's worse than being poor? Being famous. without anyone to protect you. When nobody knew my name, I was free. When all of Russia knew it, I became a target. The newspapers said I was the Empress's lover. A lie. They said I was a German spy. That one made me laugh. They said I controlled Russia. That one had a grain of truth, but not the way they meant it. Alexandra consulted me. Yes, she asked my opinion about ministers, about the war, about policy. I answered honestly, the way I saw things. I told her, this war will destroy Russia. Nobody listened. I told her, some of these men don't want what's best for the country. They want power for themselves. They called me paranoid. Members of parliament gave speeches denouncing me. The church condemned me, though it had wandered pretty far from God itself. The aristocracy despised me, because I, a peasant, sat closer to the throne than any of them. They exiled me from the capital. I came back. They sent assassins. I survived. In 1914, a religious fanatic named Kionia Guseva stabbed me in the stomach on a public street in my hometown. The blade went deep. I lost a tremendous amount of blood. I survived. Some people started to believe I couldn't be killed. I saw it differently. My time simply hadn't come yet. War came in 1914. I was against it. I told the Tsar, don't do this. Russia isn't ready. This war will be the grave of your dynasty. He didn't listen. Then the Tsar made it worse. He went to the front himself to personally command the troops. That was a catastrophe. Every defeat now had his name on it. And back in Petrograd, Alexandra was left alone, with me beside her. His enemies used that. Rasputin rules Russia through the Empress. The papers screamed it every week. I wrote letters to Nicholas, warning after warning. Some of those letters survived. In one, I wrote, "If I am killed by boyars, and their hands are stained with my blood, you will lose your throne within 2 years." Nicholas II abdicated in March of 1917, 18 months after my death. I take no pleasure in being right. I loved that family, genuinely. I could see what was coming for them, and I was powerless to stop it. That is my deepest wound. The entire royal family was executed in 1918. Every single one, including the children, including Alexei, the boy I once held by the hand. If there is any justice in the universe, those who pulled the trigger will answer for it. December 1916. Felix Yusupov, a young aristocrat, one of the wealthiest men in all of Russia, invited me over. He said his wife, Irina, wanted to meet me. I knew it was a lie. Irina was in Crimea. I went anyway. Maybe I already knew what was coming. Maybe I was just too tired to keep running. The basement of the palace, an elegantly decorated room prepared especially for the occasion. Cakes on the table, wine in crystal glasses. The cakes were loaded with potassium cyanide. So was the wine. I ate, I drank. Enough poison to kill several grown men, and nothing happened. Yusupov had gone pale. His hands were shaking. I watched him the whole time and kept eating. He shot me in the back. I collapsed. The conspirators decided it was over. They went upstairs to wait. I opened my eyes. I got up. I crawled to the door. I made it outside into the courtyard. Yusupov spotted me from a window above. The look on his face, pure terror. They came running, fired 3 more shots. 1 bullet hit my head. They beat me. They tied me up. And they threw me, alive, still alive, through a hole in the ice of the Neva River. The autopsy performed afterward found water in my lungs. That means one thing. I was still breathing when they threw me in. I was fighting to free myself. They found one of my hands partially untied. I fought until the very end. They thought that killing me would kill the legend. More than 100 years have passed. Dozens of films have been made about me, hundreds of books written. My name is recognized in every language on earth. And the men who murdered me? Quick, name one of them. I was not a saint. I never claimed to be. I drank, I sinned, I lived loud, and I lived wrong. But I loved Russia. And I loved the people who came to me for help and received it. Thousands of them. The sick, the desperate, the forgotten. The ones nobody else had time for. They called me the Mad Monk, the Holy Devil. Honestly, that sounds about right. History never fully cleared my name. Never fully condemned it either. It just couldn't forget me. They poisoned me. They shot me. They drowned me under the ice. And yet, here you are, watching. I told you. I refused to die.